So what we're trying to assert in this show is that death is actually a good part of the divine design. But that seems really counterintuitive because death as we know it is abrasive and painful and just doesn't seem like it's helpful. So what I wanted to ask first of all is there anywhere in life that we know of where death is actually helping?
Yeah, you don't have to go further than your own physical body because death is actually a critical part of our physical health.
What? How?
Yeah, so there's this mechanism that goes on all the time in our bodies that's called programmed cell death. And the technical term for it is apoptosis.
What's that doing?
So apoptosis, when your body uses this mechanism, there's a special class of enzymes called proteases. Trypsin is one of them. And when they get activated, it causes this process to happen where eventually proteins get degraded and it kills off cells. And so different cells in our body might have different lifespans depending on the organ, but in all cases, this mechanism is used to actually help the overall health of the organ. And so we get the experience of just being alive, I woke up, I'll go to sleep tonight, but what's making that possible is this ongoing cycle of death and rebirth that's happening at a cellular level.
Well, and it's on purpose that you'd think cells would just try to live as long as they possibly could, but these cells are saying, nope, it's my time to go because this is what helps the whole.
Yeah, so for example, in our stomachs, there's this really harsh environment with hydrochloric acid that helps our digestion, but so those cells of the lining of our stomach, they get renewed every few days. And they need to do that or else we wouldn't have a healthy digestive system. And so whatever the cell is, on whatever level, this death of cells is really supporting our ongoing health and longevity.
And it's so amazing that that's how it works. And you can even take that beyond just the level of a single organism. You think about species, like this is a finch, which is this classic symbol of adaptation and evolution. Yeah, right. And we've noticed that finches can be different on different islands, but also even they're still changing because there's finches that are adapted to urban environments now. They're noticing they have like a wider beak to get into bird feeders better. And that kind of change though couldn't happen without death.
Yeah.
Because it's the generations and how in each generation the ones that are the best adapted are the ones that survive that make this kind of change possible, because an individual finch can't change. So if they live for 1 million years, you wouldn't get them as well adapted as they are.
Yeah, and you're making me think of just like on another scale, you have whole ecosystems where death is this critical element involved, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You think about forests, if none ever died, it would just be these same trees that were here 20 million years ago because they're the biggest, they got all the sunlight. But as soon as one of those things falls over and dies, then suddenly you've got disruption and there's light coming in so these little ground-dwelling plants can grow up and new species of trees got a chance to get in there. So in this funny way, death is what allows for this huge diversity of life.
Yeah, so in all of these physical examples, there's got to be some kind of correspondence going on, right? And so there's got to be insights we can glean from this to help us see how death is really a useful part of our spiritual lives too.
Oh, I love it. And that's our starting point. I think that's where we can start to look at, so death helps on the physical level. Yeah. How does it also help on the spiritual level and beyond? So both of these physical examples of death that we just looked at, the programmed cell death and then individual members of a species passing on, they're both adaptations for what's next in the process. There's this universal pattern of having something for a while and then having to let it go. It's kind of like a spaceship with rocket boosters. It's got to get out of the atmosphere, but then it's got to shed those things because they're not useful anymore and they're too heavy. And Swedenborg says that it works like this spiritually as well.
It is by divine providence that we divest ourselves of what is physical and time-bound by dying, and put on what is spiritual and eternal. The physical and time-bound things are the outermost and final substances that we first enter when we are born, in order eventually to be brought into deeper and higher things.
So this implies that because of the nature of deeper and higher things, you couldn't just start with them. You got to start on a static physical foundation and then work your way up.
The outermost and final things are what hold us together, and they are found in this physical world. This is why no angel or spirit has been created as such directly. Rather, all of them first came about by being born human. As a result, they all have outermost and final substances, essentially stable and constant, within which and by which their more inward substances can be held together.
It kind of seems like we're a mold. Like you have to have this stable physical structure for the living stuff to fill in.
Further, all the deeper and higher parts of us are present at once in these outermost or final elements. As a result, everything the Lord does, He does from beginnings and endings at once, and therefore completely. However, the outermost and final substances of the material world cannot accept the spiritual and eternal things for which the human mind is formed, not as they are in essence, even though we are born to become spiritual and to live to eternity. We therefore divest ourselves of them and keep only the inner substances of the material world that are adapted and congenial to what is spiritual and heavenly. These serve to hold us together. We do this by casting off the limiting time-bound physical substances, a process that we call physical death.
So did you catch that last part? It seems like he is saying that something physical, some really specialized part of it, does stay with us, even in the spirit, which is crazy, and also just shows more why you'd need to have this physical foundation in the first place.